Did you hear from the fans at that time about what Dr. King was talking about? Did you get feedback that they saw the importance of your role?
No, I didn't even, I don't think I did either, because that was that, this, and I'm dedicated to this, and the show only went two more seasons. And I could have been on Broadway, which is why I euphemistically say Star Trek interrupted my career, but with more than tongue in cheek, And I didn't know until the Trek conventions, and nobody asked me or anything. I didn't come up for quite some time, and then I was at a really large convention and I was talking before 2,000 or 3,000 people, it felt like, but it was a huge audience. And someone asked me a question, and I think I said, well, I don't know, or something like that. I was going to leave the show anyway at the first season, and laughing, and the hush came over, and they said, somebody said, you mentioned, questions went on and blah, blah, blah. And somebody brought it up again. And we were laughing and talking and having fun and telling little anecdotes, and the audience, they love it, when you include them in and you make them one and become one with them. And then I said, whatever I said that began that, there was this somber tone of the audience. And we were very quiet. And so I was, on a roll, and the story, and I was not telling a story. I was recalling. And I find today that even when I tell the story, the Dr. King story, as people love to say, I am recalling again. Many times somebody said sometimes you tell different stories, but it's always kind of the same. I think that's interesting, and it's because I recall things. It might be in that moment that I recall him talking about the children, or because 10 years or more after that, I met 3 of his children, and I'm telling them the story that your father told me that this, and they finished the story. Yes, it's the only story that, and it hadn't been written yet, And he said, yeah, it was that Star Trek was the only show Daddy let us stay up, and we were always trying to stay up to watch something and do something and get not anything but go to bed, and like that, and it made it so real now. And some years ago, I was at their big tents outside, and where these celebrity tents are guarded and so forth, and sometimes I went into one of the ones where you get refreshments, and that's where the celebrity, and there's Coretta King, and she's sitting like this, and someone brought me over to introduce me, and she said, oh my goodness, Uhura, she said, and my life went like tilt again. And the next thing I know, I was kneeling at her looking up to her, looking up, talking with her, and telling her about my meeting with Dr. King. And she said, yes, she knew, and his one of his favorite stories. And I said, then it's really, really real. And she said, oh, yes. And I said, well, that explains why he either would call me from someplace to make sure, once to thank me, well, I want to thank you for coming to your senses, kind of like. And the other to tell me that his little children were delighted, and that I had stayed, and how much that had meant, and blah, blah, and how that had affected me. And then, of course, I didn't say, and of course, especially after his death. And I said, but I always felt, well, I don't know if I said this to her, but I always knew what he meant, how important that he'll never know how important he was to me, because now it was no longer about what I was missing, but what I was responsible for and had. And I never looked at it as anything but an honor. And I turned down roles and did other roles that I might not have done or might have done. After Star Trek was over, and I was feeling, well, at least I can now, they're going to see my range, and I'm not just Uhura. The ones I wanted went somewhere else. The ones that I did do were a challenge. But then Uhura and I became friends. She was not a different person, but she wasn't me. I wasn't, you think, oh, I'm now Uhura, It was the character that I had the blessing to create and never failed me, she. And so I have euphemistically said she's like my great-great-great-great-granddaughter. And she won't let me do certain things, blah, 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 grandma. And people think I really have this conversation with her. But she's like my, if I had, when I was a little girl, I remember my dad said I was 5 years old because he remembered it. So because of the question, I climbed up on his lap and said, Daddy. And I asked him, did people on other planets look like us and talk like us? And if they did, why can't we talk to them? How do we go? Because I knew there was something called the galaxy and ours, and I knew those Pluto and Saturn and what they looked like, and some were bigger and some were than we were the little blue ball. And instead of Dad telling me this was the only world there was, he explained to me how important the sun was. It was a life force, it was in blah, blah. Instead, he told me, and he didn't tell me yes or no or I don't know. He said, I wouldn't think that if there is a God, And there certainly must be a great universal force. We're not by accident, just, I don't think. But if there is a God capable of just making our little galaxy, do you think that God would make himself so limited with all of those stars and out there and planets out there that he wouldn't people it with intelligent something? They might not look just like us. But if you were God, would you? And so there must be intelligent life out there. We just haven't been able to reach them yet. We don't understand how. And if there's intelligent life, Mother came, are you filling her head, Phil, with stuff that he said, well, chicken, he called me chicken. Well, chicken, if there is intelligent life, other intelligent life out there, maybe they know better than to bother with us because we haven't done very well with our intelligence this far. Daddy, what do you mean? He said, just joking, just joking. You'll know sooner or later. He says, but if there is, we shall know it someday. Maybe not in our lifetime.
So you came back to Star Trek. It was near the end of the second season in April of 1968 that Dr. King was shot and killed. Mm-hmm. What was your reaction to that when you heard that news?
I'll never forget it. We were on, I guess, hiatus or something. 68. Oh, the show went off on 69. Whatever happened, I was remarried, and had accepted a contract for a big supper club in Canada for a lot of money at that time. It was great. And I knew we had lots of fans up there. So I don't know if I asked Gene if I could be off, because I'd seen I would do that occasionally, especially in the first year, that I had dates and he would let me off out of that film, that episode. I think I missed 3 episodes, if that many, and to fulfill obligations. But this one was something that had come up, because I don't think it was hiatus. But anyway, we were driving back. It was a big success. It was an event, and I did several in that 2 weeks. And we were very happy, and we're driving back, and this comes on. We're almost home. We're about 30 miles on the other side of LAX. And we're driving and thinking about what a wonderful experience that was, etc. And it came on the radio. And I heard it, and I understood it was true, but I didn't know what to do with it. And so I felt like I'm adrift on this ship out in the ocean or something, and it was moving, and there was nothing I could do. I couldn't cry. I just felt like a lump of protoplasm that had no reason, rhyme or reason. And my husband continued to drive. And we never said a word until we pulled in to our home. And we came in and we sat down. And he didn't cry, but there were tears coming out of his eyes. They were just sitting there. And we just sat there in front of each other doing the same thing. But I didn't cry like cry. I didn't know what to do with that. I couldn't. If one had said in front that this would happen, what would you do? I could see myself screaming, painting, cursing them, all the things that you would think that you do. I felt anything that I was so useless. It's the same as when the space shuttle came down. I had a friend had come into town, was staying at my house, and I had gone for my morning walk. And I came in feeling so invigorated, and he told me, and I had that same sense of futility.
Are you talking about the Challenger?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, did I not say that? The Challenger was, those were my recruits, two of them, of my recruits.
Because you were very involved with NASA by that point, right?
I accepted a contract from NASA to recruit the first women and minority astronauts for the space shuttle program, because they were not getting the kind of response from women and people of color that they expected. And they convinced me that they were. I said, I don't know why you're so surprised. You've had five or six recruitment drives in which if you're an American, you must be considered. And you still have an all-white male astronaut corps, albeit that they've done wonderful things. But you might very easily have passed up the next Einstein when you would not include people of color and women. And they said, and I said, no, I won't do it because they'll laugh at me. Well, they just heard me speak in my acceptance on the board of directors of the National Space Society the day before, which is how I got the invitation to come to NASA headquarters the next day and to talk to them of something of concern. And when the Challenger went, and so I did, and so I came, and it turned out that the headquarters head of the astronaut corps, John Yardley, was a man that I knew from a project that we had done 3, 4, 5 years ago or so, before he had come to NASA, and I knew him to be a man of honor, and so I listened, and I said, well, I won't do it. Wherever I go, you know, people will laugh at me. You know, you're NASA's latest dupe. And he said, not if they hear you speak for 5 minutes. And that took me aback, because all that I'd been saying about, I had actually taken NASA to task the day before. They needed to come down from their ivory tower and realize that in that woman that they're refusing, or in that African American or any other person of color, they might be passing up the next Einstein. That where we don't know where that would take us, and so he reminded me of that. As I'm sitting there before him, I said, how do you know about that? He said, we were in the audience listening to you. So was the director, who took that moment to walk in the door in his office. And at the moment he said, so it's your choice, but we need you. And just as he walked in, and I said, I will accept it, but I have to do it on my terms. I cannot have a NASA representative taking me around and propping me up with a prepared speech. I won't do that. I'll do it, but I'll do it under my company, Women in Motion, and I'll be your PI. And I will bring you, not just one woman, not just one African American. I will bring you so many qualified people, because I'm going after PhDs and people that are beyond what you're talking about. I will bring you so many qualified people that you will have no choice. You will have a choice, a range of people. And if you don't, if this goes by and I have done my work for you, and if I am right, and if there are no women, and if there are no male people of color in your astronaut corps, and it's still an all-white male astronaut corps, I will be your worst nightmare, because I will put all the energy that to bring you the people, and I will file a class action lawsuit against you. I will go to every newspaper that I'm going to go through for this. I will go and speak before Congress, which I will do with this, and I will expose what I have done and why we are where we still are today. And John Yardley stood up, and Dr. Fletcher was near his desk, and he gave me his hand. And he said, and I'll go with you. I said, I'll take you I'll go before Congress. And he said, and I'll go with you. And John Yardley said, and so shall I. And with that, I took off a year of my career to do nothing but that. And I put my office together, and I said, here's what I want. I want every university that we can possibly pile in that has a strong engineering or science programs. I want doctorates that come out of there. I'm not going to get their lowest, which is a bachelor's degree. I said, I'm going, actually, this is what I'm going to do, to see the heads of these universities, for them to identify their alumni who fit in this category and who would be, that's who I'm going to go with. It so happened that at that time, the Organization of Black Pilots, the Organization of Black Engineers, and were having their, all over the country, were having their conventions, their annual conventions. And when I made overture to them, they said, well, we've got our program already, we can't pay her. And this is, we just can't. And I explained that I was under contract to NASA and it wouldn't cost them anything, and they just went bananas. And they invited me, and indeed they said many of them said, NASA's using you, Miss Nichols. And I said, I know, and I'm using them. Now I want to use you.
Let's go back to Star Trek a little bit. I wanted to ask you about...
I'd just like to say here that, in fact, when I took the contract, NASA had something like under 100 people of color who qualified at the lowest level. Something like close to 1,000 of women from all over, everywhere, who wanted to be writers, photographers, but hardly any. When I finished with them, they said, please stop. They had not only one woman, that they took 6 women. They took not only one African-American man, they took 3 and an Asian, which nobody was thinking about at that time. I was so proud because when I finished, not only had these people in these categories, but other white men who wrote me and said they would have never thought they qualified until they heard me speak or saw me on television. I took Good Morning America down to Mission Control. I took them to the Cape, and they had never been able to gain entry. Or entree. There was so much that happened in that short period of time. I went to a university where they were livid with me. They wanted to hurt me, and they told me that. And I said, that's fine. I said, let's stay civil, but I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to find that one person who'll take a chance and be it. And I said, and then I told them what I told NASA and what happened in that room. And I said, I believe them. I would rather believe them than to do nothing and have the same kind of astronaut corps. But if you don't want adventure and you want to stay stupid the rest of your life, keep going. And the guy wanted to hit me because he was like one of the smartest guys in the place. And I said, just euphemistically speaking here, you know. And then I said something funny, and by all this time people were laughing, and the next thing I knew, they were coming up asking me, would you take my application? Because everywhere I went, I handed out applications. And I said, certainly. And as a matter of fact, there was a young pilot and scientist and with qualifications, beautiful qualifications, African American, who, when he saw me, said, my God, that's what I want to do. And then he said, but there are going to be so many, they probably won't. So he didn't apply, but he applied at the next one, the next recruitment. And he was chosen like that. Today he is the administrator of NASA. General Charles Bolden, who has declared that he regarded me as his mentor because he watched everything that I kept watching me of him. We became very good friends, and his wife said from the time that he became an astronaut, or the first time he saw him, he said, she is one, and I did meet him when he became an astronaut, and he had said that it was because of me that he hung in there. And all of the things that he's done since then, marvelous things that he's done since then, that qualified him to be asked to head to head NASA as administrator, makes me very, very, very proud. Yeah.
When Star Trek launched its first season, you were getting scripts where your role was fleshed out, and then you saw revisions where your role got cut down and cut down, and there seemed to be a pattern. So what did you do? I understand you talked to one of the writers, D.C. Fontana, and that you could talk to D.C. Fontana about this. And
I really am not sure I talked to anybody, really, because I thought, and this was mostly in the first year, which led to my, I mean, what are you going to do? They don't want you. I would get, but yet the writers kept writing how wonderful for everyone. And there were marvelous scripts, and you're quite right. But you'd get there's a 6-day shooting schedule for one episode. The 7th day could be Monday, could be Tuesday, could be like that. So it's, and so you'd get the script 2 days before your 6th day.
The next cycle.
It's in that cycle,
right.
The end of because they're writing like crazy, you know. And so you'd get it, and you'd see this wonderful script that involves you so well. And then you'd get the pink slip. And, oh, this speech was out, and they've cut this down. And then the next day you'd get the yellow pages.
All the revisions would come down?
These are revisions. And then you'd get the pink revisions, and then you'd get the orchid revisions, and then you're down to, but captain of science, you know. And so I stopped reading them. Why should I read them? And I wasn't being, I was being facetious, but I was being for real when I said Star Trek interrupted my career, because I could have done without all of that. But in the meantime, Gene had things in his mind. When they asked me back on the show, and I said no, things got better a little, but they were still in that, lost in that, stuck in that mind frame that minorities had to be in the subservient position. And Star Trek simply took it out of that, and the world changed as well. Yeah, I mean, it was that once you can't get them back on the farm once they've been to New York or L.A. or what. But it's true. Once people, and since then I have had people of every color, men and women, girls and boys, who are boys. When I say boys, I mean young men and young women, who come up to me and said, until I saw you on television as Uhura, I came from I didn't think, you changed my life. I saw the world totally different. And I can never think of other people as I thought of them before. I had a skinhead in England who came, and I had this tremendous security around me. The first time I'd had that much security around me, and would wonder what. But apparently, skinheads had said something about they were going to disrupt the Star Trek thing because they didn't believe in the mingling of the races. And there was at this autograph line hundreds of people, and about 10 people back, well, you knew who he was. His head was on, and you knew he was going to take off this swastika off of his neck, he told me. And, but he had nothing. He just came and did like this. I have to talk to her. And this was the first time in life, all of these armed guards, professionals, were there to protect me. And I had my girlfriend, Judy Pace, who was with me, seated at the table, and this 6-foot guy, young, handsome kid, scary, walked up to me, said, "You can search me, but I have to talk to her." And they wouldn't let him, and I said, "Leave him alone and let him come and talk to me." And he said to me, "I was a skinhead, and I came this way so you would believe me until I saw you on television," because they didn't get it in England. Mm-hmm. This was first time we were. I was in New York, or maybe I was in England. Anyway, yes, I was in England, and he came to me and he said, "I can never be again." And he showed me his swastikas that were coming off, and all of the things that he had on his fingers and so forth. He said, "I never saw anyone outside of a white person as anything but beneath me, as a human being." He says, "I can, because of you and this show, I can never do that again. I just wanted to thank you." And here's this kid is only about 19. If that old. And that was the most moving, one of the most moving things. But in one way or another, I have heard that over the years, and young people, and now older people who have young children, saying, "When I first saw you, what that experience meant," because we weren't allowed to watch Star Trek. We had to go to a friend's house who could watch it. And ever since I saw you, because I came from a racist family.
Let's talk about some of the specific episodes
Sure.
that
Okay.
feature you, or that you have an important role in as a Who. And just a quick comment or a reflection on them. The first one, Charlie X. This is where you sing for the first time.
Charlie is my darling, my darling. That's the one that I spoof Spock about his ears, right? Yes.
How did that come about? And how
Gene
did
had
it
it
fit?
written. Somebody came and gave him a script, and he wanted to do one with humor, and he wanted to make sure that I sang. And he had written for me Beyond Antares. That one, and then the spoof. And so what happened is that Uhura was only seen in a light when she was not on the bridge. When she was on duty, then it was Uhura that you knew. When she was in the rec room, or perhaps in the dining room and having fun, you saw that she had a sense of humor. You saw that she had a lovely voice. Both voices, even married at last. You saw that she was very human. And so I made sure that that was the kind of thing that would make her a full woman, but a professional, and do not deal. So I dealt with the cuts on the bridge as a challenge to establish my authority of who I am.
Did you think that meshed well with the character? Being able to separate
It was the
from
character. It was the character. So I accommodated not having more to say with, I know who I am and what I'm doing. I don't need to say anymore. I don't need to say any more than, yes, Captain, because he already knows that I understand. If I say yes, then, or no, then if Uhura says it, if that's communications officer, and so whatever I do have to say beyond that has weight. And so that's where I took it. And to me, maybe it made this, I've been told it made this character even stronger.
the episode called Space Seed, where your character is loyal to the captain who the ship makes, and you refuse to cooperate with Khan's people. And
Spacey.
yes, and
is that what's his name?
is that Ricardo Montalban?
Ricardo
Yeah.
Montalban. Yes.
And you're actually, I think, physically struck or something
Yes.
because you're
Yes.
defending or you're
Yes.
standing up for your crew.
Yes.
How was that important to you as an episode featuring Uhura?
As an actor, I would have loved to have had a stronger response to him. As Uhura, it was exactly right for me.
The City on the Edge of Forever, one of the most talked about and I guess fan favorite type episodes.
The what?
The City on the Edge of Forever, where
One of the what?
is one of the most popular episodes
Oh,
among
yes,
fans.
yes, yeah.
And this is where you're a member of a landing party that
Yes.
is stranded on a planet after McCoy had changed time. There was a time shifting thing there. In the role of being a communications officer, did you feel it was important to be part of this party that was, that was beamed to another time or another planet? And this is one where you actually you were included in that landing party?
Change?
No, we're still good.
I have a situation, maybe it's schizophrenic, in which one answer would be as the actor
Right.
of what I wished it were, or what I saw it as, or what it did or didn't do for me and my ego, or did it live up to who Uhura, did Uhura live up to who she is on it? And so I always, whatever it, I had reconciled to myself to it was what it was. If I could have changed it, certainly I would have loved to have had more involvement. I hope that I would have brought the same weight to it and not have had to find a manner in which, but that's life, isn't it? And so I simply let Uhura go and take care of it. And I thought she did well. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think it does.
She deals with what she deals with. She's still on duty. And it is what it is.
The trouble with tribbles. Uhura was the one who brought that tribble back.
She was not on duty. No, she was off duty.
Was that fun to do that episode?
That was fun to do. That was just lovely. And I was furious with them, at least she was. I was furious with them, and I guess we met there because they did not let her protect the tribbles. That it was kind of like she brings them back on there, and then she doesn't have that much more to do with them, except to say, just don't, if you're going to dissect them, I don't want to know anything about it, But I always felt a warm, fuzzy thing about those little animals.
And then a pretty, I guess, an historic episode called Plato's Stepchildren.
Ah, yes.
Tell me about that, this is the first time on network television that there was an interracial kiss.
Yes. Well, again, there are two people. There's Nichelle, and there's the act, right. Nichelle, the person, and the character. I think the character handled it very well. I'm happy. I'm proud of the person because we're doing they saved the kiss, and I didn't know there was unease even about it. The way I felt about it as a person, if it got as far as the script, then we must be going to do it. So fine. That was, I think it was in the first season or second. Anyway, they saved it until the last day. And at the end of the day, so all other shots and everybody's gone except Bill and me, and the camera people and so forth. So we do, and I think, they haven't even cut the lines, cool. So we're doing the thing, and I said, sometimes I'm at my thing, and I see you at your, and sometimes I'm afraid, and I see you calmly sitting there doing such and I'm not afraid. They try to, and now they're making me, by forcing us through their abilities, to perform for them, and I'm furious. But their kinetic powers are more than either one of us. We're being forced, and finally we get through the scene, and it's time, and they're there, and she's sitting up there going, entertain me, and he takes me in his arms, and he kisses me. Cut! Wait, it's in, he's still holding me, kind of with his cut slices right straight through it. He said, what? Bill did. The director, whom I knew and had a great deal of respect for, a very fine director, said, Bill, and he walks over like I'm not sitting there with Bill Shatner, Captain Kirk, like I'm not there. And he starts talking to me. He says, you kissed her. And Bill says, yes? Yes, I kissed her. Isn't that what the scene is about? And so he said, and he starts talking out of the side of his mouth like I'm not there. So I get up and I hear what he says, and Bill says, look, that's what the script says. He takes her arm and he kisses her. I took her arm and she won't let me kiss her off stage, so I took her, and he's trying to make a joke of it because this is being ridiculous. I mean, why doesn't he say, Nichelle, can cut for something and, you know, and then go and do it in private? He's doing it right in front of my face. And so I said, excuse me, I'll be in my dressing room. When you guys figure out what you want to do with it, let me know, because I really don't care. And I walked to my dressing room. Because I'd had this gown on, not my costume, there was really no place to put my rings. I go in my dressing room, and I had put my, foolishly, put my rings in my drawer. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm going, and I open the drawer, they're gone. So I turned to my dresser, and I said, oh, you took my rings out to say, and she said, rings? I saw you put them in the drawer. And my wedding rings were gone. 3 big diamonds right across here were gone. And now I'm called back, and I'm devastated, you know. I go back, and Gene Roddenberry's there. This was about a half hour later. And Gene Roddenberry's there. And he's standing beside the little chair that sofa that we were sitting on. And Bill is kind of going like this, and Gene is just, Gene smoked like this. It look familiar to you? Just standing there. And I come over to my hygiene, and I don't tell anybody my rings are gone. You know, I've got to get this scene done, and then I can worry about that. And I asked her to see the guy that was cleaning, because it's the end of the night, and whomever else was in there, find out if they took them and put them someplace safe. I'm not even afraid. I don't think anybody's stolen them. And Gene says, find him, he's standing with 6'3", you know. And he's the director's doing like this to Gene. And I remember him saying to Bill, or to Gene, I can't remember, but the South, as I'm coming up, I believe that's as I remember it, if I remember it right, they'll black us out in the South. And I started to say something like, don't knock it if you haven't tried it, or something ridiculous. But it just hit me as being ridiculous. And I walked over to Gene where we're doing this thing, and I looked over there, about 10 feet away from there, and there are 2 suits. And they've got dark glasses on and $1 million suits, which is why I call them suits. And
the studio guys, executives or something.
Studio guys.
Okay.
See, I'm the one who first called them suits.
Right.
People think, you know, I don't usually say this, but I never heard of called suits before.
Right.
But I hear it every time since, and I joke. Mm-hmm. I giggle. Young, handsome, mm-hmm. but they're out of molds,
right.
You know.
Right.
And they're just standing over there like this. And apparently he called Gene, and Gene called the NBC, and these guys came over. And so Jane said, seems they're having a problem. How do you feel about it? I said, I really don't care, Gene, whatever they want to do. It doesn't matter to me. I think it's significant for the film, but so Gene said, and the director's going like, Nichelle, that has nothing to do with you. And I said, it has everything to do with me, or there wouldn't be a problem. So but it doesn't make any difference. It's like I said, I don't care. And so Gene says, he said, okay, it's up to you, Gene. Gene said, yes, I know. And he says, shoot it both ways. Oh, he says, fine, fine. Coats turn around, leave. We're running out of time. We're already in overtime. And we sat down. He says, okay, let's get this. And he said, well, let's do Bill says, well, let's do the kiss first. And then we'll do one. He says, fine. So he does, and we do the kiss. We break. He says, that's fine. Let's do without. He says, oh, well, let's just do this one more time, because you see, I think that she should be resisting more. I said, they're kinetically taking off my resistor. Because we're just now being funny. Stupid.
This is William Shatner talking, right? When
yes,
saying,
he said,
okay.
he said,
right.
well, you know, she should fight it more. And I said, their kinetic powers have taken off my resistance. And so, and we're laughing, you know, in between every cut, he's doing things like, I told you I'm going to get you one day. You know, no, you didn't. You know, you know better. And just having that kind of fun. And finally, he says, okay, one more. And so he takes it, and I resist him. He says, that's too much. That's too. He stops it himself or something like that. Well, by the time we've done 6 kisses, more kisses. And he said, I think that it's very nice that she's fighting, but I think we both should fight it more. And then finally, you know, they'll see that we had no, yeah, okay, I just want to do what he said. Bill, we only have time, and the AD is saying, 6 minutes. And he says, we go into golden time, and I'm told, no. Oh, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say something? Okay, we'll do. And I'm just sitting there going, they have to do my lipstick again, you know. Then I have to do his and take it off. And he says, okay, this time we go with him. I said, okay, Bill, now I got to go through this corny scene. They make me scared. And now and he takes me, and this time, instead of kissing me this way or whichever way he kissed me, he turns me and bends me over like this and comes down near me, and he looks up to the camera and crosses his eyes. He hasn't kissed me. The director isn't seeing what the cameraman is seeing, who's going. And he says, there we go. He says, that's a wrap, that's a take, and that's a wrap, and thank you very much. I don't know what Bill has done. Only the cameraman actually knows it, and whoever was behind the camera, maybe one or two of the guys. But I see them smiling, and I think they're happy to get home out of this before midnight at the rate we were going. And so the next day, we're all invited to dailies. Well, you can go to dailies if you want. I never go to dailies because I don't want to adjust my acting on what the dailies tell me. So now we're all in there looking and go through the whole scene, the scene. It's for 20 minutes. We see the kiss. When it comes, and then he comes and you see him cross his eyes. And the room goes, and the two suits are over there. And Jean now Jean hasn't seen it. Jean goes, well, that was interesting. And the director just goes, he's sitting down there. He just puts his head in the hand like this. And Bill sits there with a straight face. And I sit there. I was determined that I wasn't going to crack until he cracked. And everybody's afraid to crack or whatever because they're bursting. And finally the suits stand up, and there's this hush. They're going to throw the whole scene out or what? And the suits say, as for the South, because that's the first thing they heard, which changed, it says, go with the kiss. They look. He said, oh, and as for the South, fuck them if they can't take a joke. And they walked out. And we were sitting there like, and the pandemonium broke loose. Laughter, all but the director. And he said, I had a legitimate excuse. I had a legitimate reason. But that's how the first interracial kiss came to be on national television in the United States of America, where it can't happen.